thinking about moving to an and it's got some. It's a bit cheaper than it is. I'm not really up to date with the education, but it's going to be interesting.
So basically, in this space, we don't have any special education offer.
Okay.
However, we are offering more than just IaaS, right? Primarily, Amazon space is infrastructure as a service, meaning your virtual machines and offloading them.
Quite a lot of services.
Yeah, and some storage services and stuff like that, right? We are going beyond that with specialized services.
Okay, that's interesting.
Like, if you're doing research,
Yeah.
we have full ML support, machine learning support.
I mean,
So you
Amazon have got machine learning support as well. I don't know whether it's the same.
Ours is a little bit more advanced at this stage. So basically, you can either prepare it in MATLAB or Python, whatever you want, and you just run it through on Azure. It's like pretty seamless experience. And then we have specialized services like IoT Hub. Amazon is doing something similar there. So, you know, it's pretty decent stack of stuff, I would say. So this is basically what we have in our portfolio, right? We have cognitive services, face API recognition, all this stuff. No, for instance, bot services.
They have bot.
Yeah, they have Amazon bot. So
it's everything in many
it's a war, you know.
Facebook has got bots. Office 365. Maybe I've forgotten. Services, bots, options.
Teams.
Teams.
Yep.
Yeah, and a lot of them.
Yep.
We only recently got Teams and we play around with it.
Yeah, you need to enable it on Office 365.
I think it is enabled.
Still,
We have
if you
about
don't,
9 or 10 of them.
could be.
These things are kind of a bit worrying because sometimes we wonder what direction this product's going in. It seems to be going in a very different direction, of course. Then it loses its kind of what it is. What is this thing?
So basically,
why call it office at all? I mean, it's not for the office and kind of thing. Why do you call it education?
pure productivity, right? So
Because it's education and office and product and you can actually, it's a development tool as well. So,
in some stages,
yeah.
it's
It's
integration
not a good sign
platform.
when you go in many different directions with a product that originally was a communication tool.
Still, you know, I think how, you know, it's also additional security layer, which is on top, right? So all this,
Yeah.
I think,
Actually, shall I? Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this Microsoft event. We have more people coming in. I'm just giving a very quick intro. I'd like to thank the Microsoft team and the partner that are coming here. So we've got Oliver here, yeah? Vanessa, and later on I think we're going to have Stavrinos. I don't know whether he's here yet. This is a very nice opportunity to learn more about education, the kind of things that Microsoft is offering. It looks quite exciting for me. I'm here, the Technology Enhanced Learning Head of the University of Nicosia. So I think that's really all I wanted to say. I'll leave you to these experts. I'd like to thank Microsoft for coming here and doing this event. I hope there'll be more in the future as well. So I think maybe, Vanessa, you'd like to take over at this point?
Good morning. I think I have met with most of you. So we did some presentations in the past and some discussions. And basically, most of the questions that come from you are related to Office 365, but also on the technical side of things. So we have the opportunity today to have with us Oliver Zofic from our headquarters in the Central Eastern Europe that has been involved in several projects. So the idea of the training today, it's not a presentation, it's more of a discussion and training. So you have also some concerns. Most of you have already deployed Office 365 and you have some questions. So the idea is to have a lot of discussion and to answer your questions. So it's not fixed, the content of this presentation. I don't know if, Oliver, you prefer to do the whole of Office 365 and then you have a Q&A, or you prefer to get the questions as you...
I can do a question both ways.
Okay, so in case you have a question, we do a Q&A session after each topic, because we will be covering Office 365, Azure, and then we'll do a bit of Teams, which is also more on the teaching side of things, a bit of Teams, OneNote, and learning tools. But the first part, Office 365 and Azure, it's a bit more technical, so feel free to ask any questions that you might have.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, so can you all hear me? I don't think I need a microphone. So, you need it. Okay. I don't want to sit, so I will use this one. So thank you also from my side. I'm, like Vanessa said, responsible for a lot of things. And primarily I'm dealing with everything that Microsoft has to offer on the cloud for 33 Central and Eastern European countries. So it's pretty exciting what we are doing. Lately we also had a huge amount of announcements in which directions we are going. And definitely one is like one common Microsoft education platform which connects everything together. I don't think we had, we had like very good Office 365 for education story. We had partial on-premise story, how to manage the devices, how to, do the identities, Active Directory. But finally now we are putting everything into one big bucket, which you can basically take and use on demand as much as you can. Of course, everything starts from the scratch. So some parts of services are available for free. And then it's possible to upgrade those services into certain stages based on your needs, right? So definitely one of the nice benefits is to have the Office not only for your faculty and staff, but also having the Office for all your students, which comes with the benefit of the agreement, right? The same things we are doing with Windows. I don't know how much you know about it, but if you have the Windows upgrade in your agreement, all your students can basically have the Windows in your, for their personal use, right? It's a very nice benefit. Why it's important? Because especially in universities, what is happening? Students are bringing their own devices into your environment. And not only that, it's good to push a little bit those students to actually upgrade to something that makes sense, which is Windows 10. On the other hand, it makes sense to have a security layer which will protect your environment. And this security layer, in our terms, is called enterprise mobility, which is a boundary. So if the student comes into the organization, basically it needs to authenticate into your Wi-Fi, it needs to authenticate whether he can access the services of the university. And of course there is a pre-check, so they need to have updated antivirus definitions. Lately, you know what happened with WannaCry. I think many of you were impacted or heard about the news. So more of these threats will come. And Microsoft is basically having a really strong strategy to enforce and to improve the security in all layers. Not only on the Windows layer with Defender, but also on all the services which are available as part of the platforms. So coming back to the Microsoft for Education, I think one of the really relevant parts is that our mission has changed. I don't know, many of you are in touch with Microsoft one way or another, but definitely we moved from selling boxes of Windows and Office to something that offers much better potential. And especially in education, a very good sign was actually when Satya came. One of his first trips was actually to Kenya. He was investigating how they're doing education, digital education in Kenya. It's an African country. almost zero there, right? So he said, you know, if we are building up a product, these products need to have an education flavor to help you out, to train the teachers, to teach the students in order to achieve more. What does this mean? You have a lot of bureaucratical tasks every single day, right? Paperwork, stuff like that. And if you can move and automate some of these workloads using our products, I think you can achieve much more. You can focus much more into teaching, which is your passion, and actually achieving more with your students, so they can learn more. It's a very competitive situation currently on the market. I don't know whether you're checking the trends, what is happening. The demand on IT jobs is amazing, right? Are your students actually getting the right skills, getting them prepared for the future? Nobody knows, right? But at least what we can do is help you out to use the latest and the greatest, because at least there is no gap. If you're still having XP in your environment, you know what does that mean? So your students, which will come out of education system in 10 years or 5 years, they're learning something that is 10 years old, right? So you're actually making a gap which is 15 years. So they need to catch up, whether the employers will need to train them, which is time consuming, and they will see less value actually getting the students out of universities, or they will basically focus into building up completely different segment of skills with those people, right? So it's very much relevant what we are talking today. And this was the Kenya trip. So everything that is connected, and also Satya's mission is we need to build on the outcomes of the learning system. Microsoft doesn't only provide the platform for you to be productive. We also provide content. And one of the greatest things that we can basically offer is Microsoft Imagine Academy. Possibility to actually do a skills development in your facilities, right? Instead of just showing something that is a curriculum which was built 5 years ago by a professor, you can actually have up-to-date skills on Microsoft products. We are building up a lot of open source content into our platform for you to spend less time actually preparing the content, but more time actually focusing on delivering that content. And we will go further on with additional stuff. So when we were setting up the whole vision, how Microsoft Education platform should look like, we actually established the 3 pillars connected to that. The first pillar is working with OEMs and working as Microsoft to bring affordable devices to market. And we did a huge step forward, I think, in this direction, especially connected with the cheap devices. Maybe this is not so much relevant in Cyprus space, but it's very relevant in other, especially emerging markets. Because having a device is a door opener in order to access anything that is available out there in the internet. And I would like to show you maybe just one example. This is Lenovo device. It's a ruggedized. It's basically a device which was built for primary and secondary education because, you know, they break and they do a lot of stuff with these devices. This device costs around 200 euro. It's pretty decent, it's pretty powerful, it works flawless. I'm using it for the past 3-4 months. And it's fully connected to the cloud. So basically, the only thing that I have installed on this device is, of course, core Windows Education image, Office that comes through Office 365, which is always up to date. The rest is managed through cloud. So I'm logging in using Office 365 account, Azure account. I can see this device managed through Intune for Education. So I can enforce the updates, so the device is always up to date. I can enforce the policies, so if this device disappears, it will lock down. I can enforce, for instance, in education, camera lock, so they cannot record during the lessons or doing some crazy stuff during the lesson. And I have full productivity in a $200 device or $250 device. It has touch, it has pen, everything, right? So this is tremendous work which was done by the Windows team, actually working with all these OEMs to actually make things happen. Because usually, you know, we were offering devices which are higher price range. But now we really want to have like clear path for every student to have meaningful device fully connected with the cloud, giving them the best productive experience. And there has been a lot of different add-ons for education in, for instance, latest Creators update. And the Windows 10 education will significantly change in course of next few years, adding more and more education features. Like every single product that we are doing is having this education flavor. The second pillar is Office 365. How many of you are already using Office 365? Okay, most of you. So Vanessa, good job. But usually, you know, maybe you're not aware of all the potential that Office 365 can bring to you. I will try to spend a lot of time doing the demos, so you will see basically how practically things can work inside the classroom. I will show you some new features that are already there. Maybe you just need to enable them, which can significantly improve your productivity and collaboration on a day-to-day basis. I know that you have the passion to work with students, to have a real meaningful discussion about the content that you are presenting, and students will actually learn a little bit more, right? Which is, I think, very, very much important. And the third pillar are the applications, right? So we were aware that, you know, in the Android world or in the iOS world, you have plenty of choices regarding the applications. We are working with all the vendors. We are even acquiring some of them which are bringing education-relevant applications. One of the recent ones was Minecraft for education. So basically, out of the game, which was available, you know, through all different stores, we are basically making the education space inside Minecraft. Why? Because we identified that the coding skills are something that education end users basically need in order in their life to succeed. And we built on top of the Minecraft for education also a code builder, so basically even the youngest generations can basically learn how to code inside the Minecraft world. It's interesting for them. I don't know how many of you are having kids, but definitely it's something that is super exciting for them, right? So it makes sense. So if I dig a little bit deeper, and if I picture how everything works in one big bucket, this is basically the slide which I prepared so it doesn't look as good as the rest of them. So if we put like one organization, and if we try to put all the stack of Microsoft inside, what can we achieve and how it should look like, right? Definitely one commonality is the identity. Enabling single sign-on everywhere, I think, is super critical, because otherwise people get lost with usernames and passwords. And especially in education, this is like super relevant topic. So if you look here, you know, yes, we are treating Active Directory as the core service of the organization, right? But we doesn't stop there. Because we know that you have student management system, you have teacher management system, you have learning management system, and all different components, and usually identity is a big crisis. At the end of the day, authentication to Wi-Fi. Why wouldn't you have the same username and password also to authenticate to the Wi-Fi? Makes sense, brings everything together. If you look further on, Office 365 is the productive and collaborative environment. Some bullets here. We actually increased the email box mail storage to 100 gigabytes. We are offering 1 terabyte of OneDrive storage. This is possible to increase to 5 terabytes. It's already a guide how to actually do it. If you didn't know, maybe a relevant information. Skype for Business, bringing your lessons out of the regular classroom. I think it's very much relevant. right? So they can not only learn from you at home, because we all know that this will eventually hit us, right? Education as it is will significantly change. And the universities which are offering remote learning are blooming these days. Let me just show you a little bit of my example. I'm taking INSEAD courses, and I never saw the university. I'm getting a certificate, I'm getting a degree, and I never visited university. This will for sure change for all of you, eventually. For some of you earlier, for some of you later, but I think at the end of the day, it will be some kind of a hybrid model that will appear between having students in your classrooms actually getting mentorship from you and having something online, right? And I think it makes sense to think about it. And Skype for Business is an excellent tool where you can basically invite your students, you can present to your students, you can record the lessons so the students which weren't able to attend, they can listen and they can learn from home. Even inside Microsoft, right? We have regular learning cycles. How we are doing it? We are doing it using Skype for Business. We are having pretty comprehensive learning tool inside Office 365 where it's possible to check the performance, check the status, whether somebody did certain training, whether somebody didn't. And you know, all the employees are very much pushed to be up to date with the know-how. Right? The same, I think, similar methodologies can be applied to education as well. Then very significant part is infrastructure management, right? Not only the security threats like antiviruses, but also prediction who can hack your environment. And having Active Directory as the core centerpiece is, I think, super essential element to bring the identity to one place and to have a secure mechanism to log in everywhere. This Active Directory is, if you're using Office 365, makes sense to connect directly with the Office 365. So you are keeping all the data in your premises. You have the passwords. You're securing your environment, right? But the users which are using external services are using your own protected identity. I think this is very much relevant. And of course, tools that can help you out on a daily basis talking with IT, right? So how you are approaching the deployment of PCs, right? Currently, usually you create a USB stick, you go from a PC to a PC. There are different tools starting from Windows deployment services, which you can enable in your environment to have a network boot and to install the Windows through this channel, or you can really do a comprehensive deployment using System Center. So you can basically target certain PC and redeploy it, update it, make things happen, right? So when we are putting everything together, of course, the essential part is management of the mobile devices. As I said, you know, not only the PCs are the ones that can bring stuff into your environment. It can be also phones. It can be also tablets that will bring malware and stuff into your environment. So it makes sense to have a feeling whether these devices are always up to date and whether they are protected. And for that, we have a cloud solution which connects all these devices all across the internal environment and external environment in order to secure those devices. And you know, once again, the benefit is if you have Intune for your faculty and staff, all the students, you can plug into Intune for free, right? Which is, I think, super good to secure your parameters. Of course, then there is a pillar of partner solutions, and you're using many of them, starting from the school management system. Most probably, you know, if you're a private organization, you're doing some CRM, hopefully already, because, you know, you need to get a little bit of a predictability how many students you will have next year in order to set the budgets and to have a predictability whether your university will sustain on a long run. Definitely it makes sense that you somehow track the performance of the students, right? Inside Office 365, you have a Power BI where you can basically connect to your data sources, see the performance of the students, performance of the teachers. So you can basically adjust on the needs one way on the market and one way of the performance of a certain teacher or a student. And this is very important for the leadership of universities. And of course, it makes sense, once again, to all these solutions that are somewhere out there, either a partner solution, your own build solution, or something that you build with the partner, to have a single sign-on experience, either using Active Directory or either using Office 365, right? Identity. So if you put everything together, this is basically the value proposition that we are having in order for everything to happen, right? So digital linking is becoming more and more powerful. We just launched Windows Surface Pro, the new version of this device, which is having amazing linking. And definitely this is something that we saw as a need, especially in education. So even these cheap devices, when we were talking about the devices which are price ranged about 200, 300 euro, they have linking support. Because what we saw is that the cognitive skills of the students when writing are significantly stimulating the brain power of the students. So, you know, everything is connected. You know, having everything typed usually doesn't achieve that, right? So we are thinking about that, and we are building up the stuff into our products just for better learning outcomes. Another thing that we are significantly improving from a version to a version is login using Office 365 or Azure Active Directory account. Why this is important? Because what we are seeing, especially in primary, secondary education, is usually the schools doesn't have server infrastructure. They don't have the capacity and the resources, people resources, skilled people resources that can manage that environment, right? And they want to move into serverless environment and to have everything in the cloud. So it's better for them to invest a little bit more into the connectivity and have everything out there and manage everything through the cloud. And we are seeing it across the globe, everywhere. Because these are the tools that are simple to use. They are in the cloud. It's a one click away to fix certain issue that they're having. Of course, they doesn't offer the same functionality as if you build up everything in your on-premises environment. Still, it's a good enough solution to actually move away from having some servers somewhere under the bench in dust achieving that tasks. And you know, here we can see basically login using Office 365 or Azure Active Directory significantly improved, even in a first login procedure. You will see, you know, I can even share this device so you can see how it actually looks like. We are building additional functionalities. This is one really educational relevant. You're doing tests every single day, right? Take a test app. Even though it's pretty basic at this stage, we are investing a lot into building up additional functionalities. Is basically, you as a teacher, you can release that test to your students using Office 365, and it will lock down the environment for them, right? So for the period of next 30 minutes, the only thing that they will see is a test. Once they complete, once they submit, they will be able to see the full picture of the operating system again. Very, very useful stuff and very easy to set up. Another one which is quite popular and became popular in last few months is set up school PCs. So let's assume that we have everything connected to the cloud. We start, you know, building from Windows 10. Usually the schools doesn't have the infrastructure to actually redeploy all the PCs. But the students are very creative, right? They will find a way how to destroy your environment, one way or another, right? And there was basically a significant need to simplify the setup. So basically how it works, you set up one machine as a reference machine, you grab the image out of that PC, In 3 clicks, you will basically set up a USB stick. You go from a PC to a PC, and you can easily redeploy the classroom in a matter of 20, 30 minutes. Very useful tool when you're upgrading stuff, right? It's not as powerful, for instance, as Configuration Manager. It's not as powerful as building up your custom ISO image with all the applications and stuff, but it's good enough to achieve the productivity of the IT people, which are usually also a teacher in schools, and to have the environment up and running and ready for the classes. Of course, you will receive all these slides. There is a lot of different information, so I would encourage you to walk through. Maybe a few words I would spend on Intune for Education. This is basically something that is brand new, I would say. And what we saw is that the need for the serverless managed environment. To have management tools which are good enough for you to set up and secure the premises of the organization. But the previous Intune was a little bit complex to manage. So instead of having the really complex setup console, we actually simplified that console that fits into the education needs. And what are usually the education needs? I need that application for my next lesson. If you're working in IT, that happens most probably almost every day, right? So if you have these devices connected into Intune for Education, you just select the applications through the business store. You can either choose the ones that are on the store. You can upload the MSI packages. So you have this diversity of choosing basically the application that you're already licensed through anything and push them down on the devices, and it will be automatically installed, prepared, ready for the next class. Or selecting the applications from the store and pushing them down. That's even faster procedure. So what else is part of it? So when the schools, usually at the beginning of the school year, they have a picture what in general they will need. They go through this step-by-step procedure. They set up a core environment. They connect the devices to Intune, and they can automatically then later on add the applications which they needed. Policy management. Policy management, if you ever had a touch with Intune, can be one complex beast. What we did a lot of interviews with education end users and IT, and we selected policies which are most relevant for education, and we made it a part of this dashboard, so you can basically with one click, for instance, disable the cameras, disable the logins, or something like that. With one click, you basically do that. And there are like 250 different policies which you can set. If this is not enough for you, you can always switch back and use the Intune Classic console, because this one doesn't have all the features, right? This is what we talked about already. And this is the application deployment. You basically just click through, and to a certain group of users, you push down which applications needs to be installed. The first time they log in into the PC, all the applications are dropped down to them, and they're automatically installed. One big difference versus the regular Intune, we have a shared device support, because we know that you have a lot of classrooms still. We added that support as well into the Intune for Education. One thing where I would spend a little bit, let's say 2 or 3 minutes, is school data sync. So what we saw is a need that schools provision the environment seamlessly. So in complex environments, when you have, for instance, Active Directory and Federation service towards Office 365 or Azure Active Directory, this is already set, right? But in many cases, we have a very diverse environment where the teachers are very comfortable preparing just the CSV files, and we can hook to those CSV files and provision the environment using this way. Why School Data Sync tool is also very important for the future? Because it provisions also the classrooms. So we build up Microsoft Classroom. Basically, the Microsoft Classroom is getting transitioned to Microsoft Teams. I'm just saying these two buzzwords because you might heard about one and maybe you don't know about the other. This will automatically pre-provision the classrooms in Office 365. So you will be able to have learning management system directly there. You will have the assignments there, you will have the OneNote class notebook there, which is, I think, essential part for the collaboration inside the classroom to have all the content in one place. File share, similar functionalities that most of you are using today, either through Moodle or some other learning management system, because we want our platform to have the functionalities which you need. We actually invested a lot into that. And School Data Sync tool can help you out in this space. It's pretty early tool. Currently, it works only on the CSV layer. So you need to prepare the CSV files somehow. There is a structure behind. And connect those CSV files to Office 365. Before I go to Office 365, maybe is there any questions? Did you learn something new? That's the most important one. Yes? No? Question?
You mentioned something before about taking a test.
Yes?
Can that test be an evaluation?
Yes. It can be an evaluation or it can be a quiz. So basically, I will show also in the demo how Microsoft Forms looks like. You can basically create a public test or public quiz where you can send it to parents, you can send it across the students and all of them will answer, or you can make it as an official test. And when you're releasing it as a test, it will lock down the environment of the PC. So instead of the test, they will not be able to do anything and until they finish the test.
And now we're talking inside school's environment. But
Yes.
school, they will be able to use a tablet or phone or whatever.
Yes. Yes.
The walking around the classroom with the USB imaging all of the PCs.
Mm-hmm.
Is a single image going to be compatible with PCs from any manufacturer?
So basically how it works, it creates driverless image. So yes, it should be compatible. And once this device is first time connected to the internet, it starts downloading through Windows Update all the relevant drivers.
So even if you have PCs that don't seem to want to pick up the group policy and stuff like that, this will basically still work on those ones as well?
So for group policies, I would definitely recommend using System Center because you already have an Active Directory in your environment. And you can basically, through System Center, directly enforce certain policies and deployment of the image through the tool, through the on-premise tool, right? You don't need to go from a PC to a PC. You can have a network boot and enforce the redeployment of the PCs this way. It's much more efficient, you know, since you already have certain components you can build on top of those. Any other question? Okay, so we can continue.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
In a different version of Microsoft Office for Business, 2 years ago, a tool has announced that allows the user to book appointments based on the availability of a person. I'm wondering if something similar is going to be introduced for Office 365 in education as well. Because a major problem that we have in our school is that we have some in, see what time those teachers are available, and book an appointment with them. Such a feature is available on the business version of Office 365.
Mhm. So are you referring to bookings or are you referring to calendaring? Bookings. So bookings is currently still commercial product, so only for the commercial customers. However, you have full calendaring. So in calendar, you can see basically all the appointments that certain teacher is having, and students can basically select that particular teacher, and he will be able to see all the blocked stuff in their calendar. And through calendar, he can basically set up a meeting on a free slot. This is how we are using it in Microsoft, actually, on a day-to-day basis. So booking is more of a front end, right? So for instance, if you're a retailer or if you have a beauty salon, you want to have a booking appointment directly from somewhere of the outside. But since your users, your students already have the full Office 365 access, they can already see the calendar of the teachers and their appointments which they are having. Right? So I would definitely move this route rather than having like something publicly as a website to handle appointments. Anything else? Okay, so I think we can move into Office part and what is new there. So definitely one of the key improvements which we are constantly doing is the co-authoring, right? So co-authoring in the past few months became much better. Why much better? Because we don't have just a co-authoring on the website, like sharing a Word, Excel document with another person working together in that particular document using browser, but we have also full client support for that. So as soon as your students and your teachers install Office 365 Pro Plus, which is full desktop client, they have the possibility to share certain document through Office 365 and do co-authoring in a native tool, which gives you much more powerful experience when it comes to formatting, creating tables and stuff like that, that you have in a limited browser view, right? It works pretty well. Of course, there is some lag because data needs to be transferred to the cloud and to another client. However, it works pretty flawlessly. We are quite using it, and it works very well, even from the client experience, right? So we are not just focused on having everything on the website or through the browser, but we are also bringing a lot of client functionalities into the Office products. Another thing which I think is very much relevant, when you're thinking, and I'm glad that most of you are already using Office 365, one very important topic is the skills development for the students. IDC is doing basically a third research, and it was published in 2016, the third one, which is evaluating what kind of skills students basically need when they are searching for first job. They were inquiring a lot of job postings, they were inquiring a lot of HR interviews. Basically, the pool was 25,000 in total. And they were looking for similarities, which skills certain student needs to get the first employment. The interesting part was that Microsoft Office skills on the first year, so it was 2012 or 2013, ranked number 3. In 2015, it ranked number 2. In 2016, it ranked number 4. Still, it's in top 5, right? Another thing, problem solving. Using Office 365, you can stimulate problem solving with your students, either using forms or some other things. Project management is also one of the top 10 skills, for instance. You can have project management either in a form of a planner, which is an essential part of Office 365, or in a project online matter, right? So these are all the things that are heavily connected with what Microsoft can offer. And if you can bring your students one step closer to getting the first employment, maybe in Cyprus that is not that big issue like youth employment, but definitely in Greece there is like huge youth unemployment. And most of the universities just don't care about, you know, the studies which are performed. If we can bring students a little bit closer to the skills which they will need for the first employment, I think we are doing the best possible job there is. I would move into the demo because I'm speaking too much. Maybe some questions which you have at this stage. These IDC researchers are basically published on IDC website, so you can basically search them through. You can even share it in your board. I think it's very much important that all the stakeholders in university know about it, because they can basically, from their content point of view, stimulate this skills development as well. Definitely, you know, if you're in any form of university, it makes sense to offer some kind of a certification as well as part of your curriculum on Office products. Because then the students will not only be able to write into the CV, I know how to write Word document, they will be able even to prove it with the certificate. And with the Imagine Academy, that is actually possible. So, Office 365, coming back to that, I'm using my own tenant to log in. The same thing, I'm using the same login to log in into Intune for Education. I deliberately opened up blank forms so you will be able to see what is the single sign-on experience. Okay. Intune for Education, Microsoft Store for Business. Basically, there is an education store which is already filtering all the education relevant applications and offering them to you. So you can basically just select the ones that are education relevant. You don't need to search through all the business applications that are out there. We already did some pre-filtering for that. And of course, I will log in into that one as well. Now it already recognized me, so this is it. And I will use the same one for Azure. My account, Azure portal, and it should log me in as well. Excellent. So these are the essential 4 components to make everything happen. Azure Active Directory, which is part of Azure Services, is the identity store, I would say, right? Here you have all the identities, whether in federated mode, you still need to do the provisioning, whether you're doing a cloud-only deployment like I'm doing it. So if I navigate here to the Azure Active Directory, I can see also already users, groups, everything that is relevant for me to manage the users later on. The beauty is, if you're using any type of a software as a service applications, and I'm thinking about maybe Khan Academy, edX, or something like that, you can basically enable the same tools using single sign-on of your organization. And there is like a portfolio of around 3,000 software as a service applications which are already on the marketplace. So you basically just say, I want my users using Office 365 to log in into that platform. They will once again have a single sign-on experience there. You can even impersonate certain users. So, for instance, the application doesn't have the Office 365 login yet, but it has their own username and password. You can basically wrap that into Office 365 login, and it will enable the single sign-on experience to that applications as well. You can also do that even though that you have on-premises applications, you can enable those on-premises applications to have Office 365 or Azure Active Directory login using the proxy, which is also available. Definitely one thing which appeared, like in many cases, was the need for self-service reset password. So we know student teachers, they constantly forget passwords. So we added that as part of the general package as well. It's not part of the free package, but it's a part of the regular licensing scheme which you can acquire. This simplifies the self-service password reset not only in the cloud, but it can push the password also into your environment, into your Active Directory. I think this will significantly improve your time spending resetting the password, and I know that you're doing a lot of that. What else is important? Once you have the access to Azure portal, then you can also start investing which parts of the components you can move to Azure. Maybe these are not mission critical. Maybe these applications or these virtual machines need high availability, right? Disaster recovery, backup. So all the things that you can elevate to Azure make sense to evaluate, right? Anyway, coming back to Office 365. So most of you should know this screen. This is like the first one that actually appears when you log into Office 365. I think I don't need to spend a lot of time actually how the procedure of installation goes. So basically select and install Office 2016. This Office 2016 is automatically connected with the account. It already sets up automatically OneDrive and all the components which are connected with the cloud. One thing, this Office is different than the Office 2016, which you get through volume licensing. This one is always on a newer version, because we are constantly updating not only the service itself, but also the client. So for instance, if certain new features are published through Office 365, all the clients get automatically updated. When it comes to the on-premise volume license copy, it usually takes a few more weeks for wrap them up into a packaged product and released through the update center. So, just to have a little bit of a feeling why Office 365 Pro Plus is different than another one. Another difference is as well the activation. So Office 365 activation is tied to a username and a password. While Office 2016 volume license is tied to a key. Many of the questions which I'm receiving for the past 2-3 years is, yes, now I have a classroom, I have multiple users coming in, it's a shared environment, right? Can I enable Office 365 in that environment as well? Yes, you can. So the feature is called shared computer activation. So you need to create small XML file with one setting, and once you are doing the deployment, you need to enable that. And once your users basically log in with the PC using your Active Directory credentials, this will automatically trigger the activation of Office 365 Pro Plus, and they will have already a full set environment ready for them to use in the classroom, even though it's a shared computer environment. So some of the features, and Vanessa will talk a little bit later on class notebook at the end, but just to give you a little bit of a hint what is actually new. One of the features which I usually start from is Microsoft Forms, the testing stuff. So I have, sorry for Slovenian, I have new form or a new quiz or test, right? And once I do it, let me try to do one, I just basically add different questions. Then, once I'm satisfied with the test, I basically share it with the people. And I have different methods. I know that it's very important to have sometimes a locked down test only in your environment, right? So I can share it either via the link, this will be publicly available, or I can share different permissions. So I can enable users to see it only if they are logged in, or I can make it publicly available. With test, basically, the important thing is that once I share the test, that I see the relevant information who submitted the test, right? If I'm evaluating students. Once I do that, and let me navigate to one of them where I have some responses. This one, I only have one. Then you receive a very nice dashboard, who answers, what they answered, what is the general answer. And I received the Excel file with all the answers. In this format, right? When they started, when they finished, who is the user, so the email of the user, first name, last name. In the quiz part, I can even put the evaluation, so I can put the scoring into the test, so it will automatically calculate the amount of scores that they achieved. I don't believe that this is like full feature tool for replacing all your testing, right? But usually, very important information for the teacher is on a daily basis whether students are following the content which teacher is presenting. So you can basically, at the end of every class or every second class, create a short test with 5 questions just in order to evaluate whether students understood certain topic. It will not be official mark, but you will gather enough information in order to see that they are really understanding the content. And if they don't, you basically can revert back. You can explain one more time. So they will get like a steady line across the semester saying, yes, now we get it, right? Because usually, the shock is when you present the whole subject for the entire semester, you have the official test at the end, and like 90% of them fail, right? You lost 3-4 months doing something, and the outcome is 0 or close to 0. It was my personal experience. I went to the secondary computer science school. We started with creating the workflows of the applications. Nobody understood because teachers, just didn't explain it properly. At the end of the semester, after 4 months, like one of the students in my class actually made the grade. The rest of us failed. And then she was complaining to the board that, these students are, hopeless. I cannot work with them. So, then it's a question, whose fault is it, right? Anyway, it can be a tool to manage the performance and to check the performance. The second one, which I'm usually referring to, is planner. Yes?
Sorry, before you go on. Earlier you referred to take a test with a lockdown.
Yes.
Lockdown. Is that through forms?
True forms, yes.
Yeah, I wasn't able to see how you can lock down the user system.
Yes, I don't have the environment fully set up. There is a guide how to set it up. It's not something complicated. It's 3 or 4 steps. Exactly. So the requirement is Windows 10. I think it needs to be upgraded at least to the anniversary update because they built in some triggers to lock down the environment. And then you can basically use the functionality. It's on TechNet article, you know, nothing really complicated to do. The second one, which I'm usually referring to, is Planner. Once again, sorry for having it in Slovenian. So usually students as well as teachers have a lot of tasks to do during the day, during the project, and I know that most of the professors are somehow involved into certain projects, and it's really hard to follow what is happening, whether you are achieving everything. Especially this complexity arises when there is a team involved into that, right? So people that need to achieve certain tasks till certain deadline and so on. So what we can do is use basically the planner as a tool to effectively manage the tasks on a daily basis in the team. So what I can do, I can say, this is my new project. It's not complete project management, so you don't have the timelines, but it's a task management. Sorry for that. Apparently I have the project. Okay. Apparently something is wrong. So when I navigate to the project, and this project is basically shared with a bunch of people, and you can see that these people actually are Alice, Frank, Ingo, and myself, I can create basically certain tasks. Finish task. I can set the deadline till when it needs to be finished, and automatically I can assign that one to a certain person. So I will assign it to Alice. And once the Alice is basically done, she will just mark this task as completed. I will receive in a dashboard notification when this task was actually completed, and I can follow certain project on the task which needs to be achieved. The good thing is that what we added is also a control list, right? So usually one task is compiled of small bits and pieces which needs to be done, right? So I can say, you know, item number 1, item number 2, item number 3, and this will compile the entire task. In most of the cases, you're doing also some promotional events, right? And in order to check whether everything is in place, catering is ordered, all the speakers are aligned, they submitted the presentations in time, stuff like that, you can basically do that in this way. And once I'm done, I just click it through. The beauty is that as a project manager, I can basically see the progress of every single task. And when it comes to task not being executed in a certain timeline, I will see here the tasks which are delayed. That means Zamuda. Then the blue one is in progress. Then finished is the Conchano. And the first one, it hasn't started yet. So as a project manager, I can easily see which tasks are occurring okay, which people are delivering on certain tasks, and if I have the need that some certain person is just overloaded with everything, I can reassign those tasks to another person. I think it's pretty useful tool. We are using it pretty much on a daily basis. Yes. Yes, I will try to do that. Yes, I will try to do that. Sometimes it just pulls the information out of my browser. Subscription, security, privacy settings. I have the English language here, safe. I will try to change them here as well. Internet options, languages, set language preferences, move up. Hopefully this should work. Let me try to reload. Yeah, this looks a little bit better. Let me try to reload that one as well. Hub planner. Yeah, looks much better. So as I said, this can be really efficient tool. Yes, go ahead.
So as a teacher, if I have a class, let's say doing projects, I mean the old computing project, they had to do a systems development lifecycle all the way through, probably about 300 subtasks.
Yep.
How would you recommend I would do that if I had, let's say, a class of 10 students who each had to have their projects managed through this?
So I would basically move into the Microsoft Classroom functionality. And I will show it a little later. Planner is more of a team planning activity or tool, right? But if we want to be really efficient in the classroom, like you said, the scenario of sharing the task with 10 students and so on, and every single task is having certain deadline, I would assume, right? We actually move to Microsoft Classroom.
I mean, certainly don't change anything for my sake. Go into this later on.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, I can wait.
Yeah. So Microsoft Classroom is a preview program. It will be transformed to Teams. I will come to Teams a little bit later, but you know, just to answer your question, how it looks like. So I create a new class, or later on I will create a new team. And in this class, I have all the elements which are needed for my learning management during the semester, right? I created at the beginning of the semester saying this is my computer science class. I invite all the students inside. I actually have now 1 teacher and 5 students. And then I have certain assignments. And when I create the assignment, I can put the instructions, and I can even attach certain section of the OneNote file. So OneNote class notebook can be a facilitator of all the content that you have for your entire class. And then you refer basically just to a section which is, let's say, you need to complete certain task. And you can do it for all the tasks. And once I do the assignment, I can allow the students to actually participate in the discussion, and all the students will automatically receive the notification that they need to complete certain task by certain time, right? Now comes the beautiful part. When the students are basically pushing back the submissions, I can see the list of all the submissions in the tool. I can walk through every single student, evaluate their work which they are doing, and I can even grade that work. So when I post the grade, student will receive the grade, everybody happy. It's also a useful combination because here I have the personal communication between a teacher and the student. So student basically submitted something. Teacher evaluated that, and he's not satisfied. Please fix. Not okay. Right? So they can resubmit again. Right? And you know, if you are structuring your class this way, that you can say, if you submit by that date, I will evaluate, and you will still have additional 2 days to submit the final work, you can stimulate for them to prepare better work. Right? So all these grades can be as well exported to Excel. And once in Excel, you can basically use them as the evaluation for your day-to-day tasks. As I said, this module and this classroom is coming actually to Microsoft Teams, which I will show later on. Not all the components are there yet. We are in a transition phase, but by the end of the summer, everything hopefully will be up and running and you will be able to use it as it is. The second one is classroom calendar. So in this classroom calendar, you are basically facilitating everything that is connected with this particular class. Right? So automatically when certain assignment is assigned to students, they will also see it in the class calendar until when they need to finish it. And they can subscribe to it, you know, they can get the information on their phones and so on, right? Then there is like a file storage where you can drop all the PDFs, all the materials which you are using during the year, or you can use the notebook. And this notebook, I'm spoiling the last session of the day. This notebook is really special. It's called OneNote Class Notebook. It's built on top of OneNote, which you already know, hopefully. But it's a special in this way that it has different permissions for different sections, right? So what are these different permissions for different sections? So the first one is collaboration space. Usually during the year, you have a task where the team of students need to complete something. You can share these certain teamwork assignments directly through this OneNote, and they will be able to collaborate on one page seamlessly across all the students. The second one is content library. So content library is a locked down section, meaning that you as a teacher can drop the content inside. Students can only read that content that is placed there. You can basically associate it with the word book, right? So instead of producing a lot of printed books, you can basically put all the content that you are preparing for the entire semester into a digital form, and students can have it basically anywhere. Because with any, either a PC or a mobile phone, they can basically subscribe to that particular OneNote file, and they will have the book anywhere. In many countries, OneNote Class Notebook, and especially this content library space, became a tool for the teachers to create their own books. So, how does it work? Usually you have either a printed book, most probably you have also the PDF book. But usually this book is not good enough to present everything that you are doing. So you want to enrich that book, right? So what you can do is basically you create different sections which are your lessons, right? Lesson 1, lesson 2, and so on. And you can basically drop all the content. The good thing is that you can put also some other relevant content into this OneNote page. Whether you found some interesting science paper, whether you found some interesting YouTube videos, whether you found some Wikipedia materials, and so on, right? So you can drop everything here. So your content will not be anymore a static book, which is locked, and most probably it was produced 10 years ago. It can become really interactive. And at any point of time, as soon as you add something new, it will automatically sync to all your students, which is even better, right? So they will always receive something which is much more meaningful to them. Then we have a teacher-only section, which is locked down only for that particular teacher, which set up the environment. Here you can start preparing your tests, which you will be publishing, and so on. There is also Forms connector to OneNote. So for instance, if I'm doing a test and if OneNote becomes my ultimate tool for doing anything, I can basically get a form directly projected into the OneNote file. So they will basically see a form here. They will be able to evaluate and submit the tests through OneNote. However, I'm losing the lockdown environment in this case, but still it's a unique opportunity. And then I get a special section for every student in my class. This special section is viewable only by the teacher and that particular student, right? So in this case, usually we are dealing in a classes where you don't have all the students in the same level of understanding. You have top performers, which are usually 10%. Then you have average, which is usually like, say, 60%, and then you have the ones that cannot follow. As a teacher, it makes sense that you properly stimulate the ones that are overperforming, not to get bored, so giving them maybe additional tasks, something interesting to do. And the ones which are underperforming, bringing them closer to the average, right? So they also need special attention. They need maybe different tasks to complete, maybe more tasks to complete, maybe more repetitive stuff to do, right? So you can actually, with this tool, establish really a personalized learning environment. And you can really focus into one particular student, giving them the content which will bring them one step closer to understanding. Yes, it's a little bit more effort, but at the end of the day, we are building the students for the future, so it makes sense. So, as I said, this one is actually synchronized also with the OneNote, right? So here you can see, okay, something happened with this one. I will close that down. You can see I have the same experience using OneNote client as well. So I know most of the times we are online, right? But there are cases where we go offline and we start preparing certain content, evaluating something, maybe even driving on a bus. I heard that infrastructure in Cyprus with buses is actually not very good, but it's a pretty common practice in other countries. Teachers to spend like half an hour, 1 hour on the bus, students to spend much more time on the bus. And in this case, you are offline. So you can still prepare all the content, and as soon as you come online, everything will sync to the cloud and to all the students. We also added 2 interesting things. The first one is Class Notebook add-in, which enables you to distribute certain content towards the students. So let's assume that you created a book, your personalized learning book, which students can actually read. But at the same time, it makes sense to distribute that version of the book to all the students. Why this is very much relevant? Sorry, Vanessa, I'm stealing the session for the end. So once you distribute that content into the personal spaces of all the students, they will be able to modify them even further. Because what one of the researchers showed, I think it was done in the University of Columbia, or one of the university in US, is if the students are writing on top of the content, the commentary, the thoughts and everything, they're learning approximately 20 to 25% more. So you can imagine them having the book and being able to write in digital form. Everything is stored into this OneNote file. Having this as a collaboration tool between the student and the teacher can be super effective to learn even more. and to improve the learning outcomes, right? So this sign-in is constantly popping out. So let me just log in. I need to switch the keyboard. So I'm basically working with a lot of customers which they saw this as a good enough tool to replace Moodle in many occasions, because it's much more seamless and it's much easier to use, especially in primary education. You know, the sustainability of something that is on premises and somebody needs to manage it, update it. Usually teachers don't have enough capacity to actually do it. So I can take, okay, yeah, apparently it doesn't work. So I can distribute that particular page to every student. Students will receive it and they will be able to write notes or type notes, right? Another tool which is coming with OneNote is also learning tools. So amount of children with dyslexia is significantly growing. They still haven't figured out why is that, but usually it's around 10% of the students are having problems with reading, with consuming the content. So we actually added also the tool called Immersive Reader, which zooms in the content and basically disseminated the words. For kids with dyslexia to basically have better reading experience. It can be pretty useful. Basically, the OneNote tool improved learning or reading skills with kids from, I think we did a research in 3rd, 4th grade, from 6 words per minute, per second, to around 20, 22 words per second. So significantly improving, because this reader is guiding them through. They need to create a different image in their brain in order to consume that. I can actually share, and it's part of the presentation. You will be able to see where this research was conducted and what was basically the outcome of that. And now we are basically back to the third part, which is Microsoft Teams. So, as you know, Office 365 is a complex beast, right? We have Yammer, we have that, everything. So finally, Microsoft Teams is basically bringing all the collaboration in one place. As you can see here, I already created like one example of a math class. I invite all the students inside. I can have all the files here, the wiki page here, the tasks from Planner to complete. And more or less all the tools that are currently available in Microsoft Classroom will be merged into Microsoft Teams. The beauty of Microsoft Teams is that it doesn't only enable the pure communication and collaboration, but it also have the offline client, and I actually have it installed here. As you can see, everything syncs. The client is also available for all the platforms, so they can be always up to date what is happening. The notification service will remind them whether they need to do something, and so on, right? So definitely this buzzword, Microsoft Teams, is something to remember because it will grow. Currently, we only have few applications which we can connect with the team. One of them is OneNote, but it's not OneNote class notebook yet. We can embed YouTube, SharePoint sites, which are already existing, and so on. But there are many more coming in the upcoming year, weeks, months, and so on. So definitely one thing to remember and to have as a task not only for the teams management, so the project group teams management, but also for the classroom management. What else is very much interesting for the education is maybe even a project online. I know many of you are doing projects. EU funds are coming once again, and you will need to do some kind of a project management. You can upload that project server part, which you usually hosted in your on-premises environment, directly to Office 365. So you will have a seamless project experience. Maybe just giving you a glimpse of how the Intune actually works before continuing with Stavrinos and with the Azure topic. This is the dashboard of Intune for Education. The same experience that I had with managing groups and users, I have also here. I can manage applications, right? So in this sense, I can just add either an app from the store, I select the group, and these applications will be pushed down to the particular group of users. This group can be a classroom, your static shared computer classroom. You can deploy those apps easily through the tool. And this is the express configuration. So the product is still in a preview phase, I would say. So it's not complete, as you can see here. But during the upcoming 2-3 months, we will release it to manufacturing, and it will have stable things. They're still doing a lot of stuff in the background. As you can see here, I have the possibility to do school data sync. This will basically connect users with particular classes and so on. You can create take-a-test profiles. These are basically online profiles where the students will basically log in into their devices or a shared devices using this profile, and this will lock down their environment this way. So if you are still not sure that one user releasing them the test will do something in the background, you can create completely a different profile. They need to log in using that profile and get into the test this way. Until they are finished, it will log out from that profile and get back into their working environment. And some other functionalities which you can use here. So Store for Business, it is connected directly with the Intune for Education. The nice thing is that if you have the requirement to purchase apps in bulk, so there is a paid app on the store, you want to enable it for multiple PCs, multiple users, you can basically through Business Store purchase that in bulk, either with a credit card or some other way, and then deploy using the Intune to the devices itself. Maybe I would take a break here. I see that you are getting tired. So maybe some questions, and afterwards some like 10-15 minutes break, and then we continue with Azure topic. Some questions. Do you find it interesting? Yes?
Before you mentioned something about single sign application or something.
Yes?
Let's say I asked the third-party company to prepare an application for my SharePoint.
Okay.
Okay, and they also need, also the users need to sign inside their website so they can get access to those resources inside the
Yes.
application. Do you have an API that is a generic one that they can manipulate?
Yes.
You can adjust it exactly as you want with your SharePoint so you get a single sign authentication?
Yes. So there is an REST API. It's very well documented. And it's very easy to implement. So if they have Facebook, Google, any type of a login, the procedure is completely the same. It's OAuth type of authentication. So they basically just pull it in. The code is very much documented. So if you're referring particularly where to find it, it's dev.office.com. It shouldn't take more than a day. because the samples which are prepared are already prepared on PHP, .NET, Python, and so on. So Microsoft Graph is the API. And besides that, they can also pull in also other informations then into their solution if they want to. So everything is very, very nicely documented. And it's Graph, which is like a buzzword in these days. Any other questions? Otherwise, let's take a 10-15 minutes break. Thank you for now. And I will assist also Stavrinos on the Azure part. Yeah, sure. Yes.
Slides.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
There were some slides you spoke about research.
The IDC,
Yeah, about
employability. Yes.
Interesting.
I will send all the slides to Vanessa. Yes. And then you will receive it. So I did the OneNote already.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, sure.
Thanks for coming today. I'm Stavrinos Kyriakou. I'm a technology strategist at Microsoft. And in today's presentation, I'm going to talk about the Microsoft Azure, Microsoft's cloud, and the educational uses, how you can use Microsoft Cloud for your educational institutions. It's a bit more technical presentation, but I'll try to keep it high level so it's interesting for everyone. So I'm going to start with a question that's been thrown around quite a lot the past couple of years. It's what exactly is the cloud? And if you go online, you'll find several responses to that question. As a technology person, I like to keep it simple. The cloud is the ability to deploy servers, computing, desktops, mobile applications with the same easiness as you would, let's say, open a faucet in your house and fill a glass of water. That's how easy it is. It's actually, the cloud is computing on top. That's the most simple and the most straightforward explanation for the cloud. It's computing as a utility. So today I'm going to talk about our cloud. It's the Microsoft Azure. It's a global, a trusted, and a hybrid cloud. And it's practically massive. It has thousands of services and thousands of some-component functions within Azure. We will have to spend days of presentations in order to go over everything. So today I'm going to base my presentation to a few of the functionalities you can use in Azure for your educational institutions. It's an infrastructure that massive, that spans the whole planet. There's 38 regions around the world that Microsoft has data centers. We are the only company that has data centers in China, and we'll keep announcing data centers all around the world. That's twice the data centers our next largest competitor has. That's twice of them.
of
So-
Africa.
We're also going to, I don't know if that was NDA, that's why I didn't say
No,
it.
it's
We also
public.
announced data centers in Africa. We're the only company that has data centers in Africa. So, Microsoft Azure is not just massive, it's also compliant, it's secure. And by securing our platform, we are empowering the users. It's actually the most compliant platform, where we are compliant with many compliance policies like ISO 27001, the PCI compliance, FDA, and regional compliance policies like in the Europe, or industry compliance policies like the ISOs. And with discussion I've been having with customers and partners, many of them have the notion that Microsoft is still a monolithic, old company, hard to navigate company. That's not the case anymore. Microsoft is an open company. In fact, 1/3 of the workloads running on Azure are open source. They are either Linux or open source compliant workloads. Azure is compatible with many Linux distributions like Red Hat, SUSE, Oracle Linux, and also with open source applications like WordPress, Joomla, and you can also develop applications using open source platforms like PHP or Python. And you can also use Azure to deploy those workloads with a click of a button practically. There's over 4,000 certified pre-configured appliances in Azure, which you can just choose from the marketplace and deploy them on the cloud. Just like our telephones now have either Google Play or the Windows Store or the App Store, Azure also has a marketplace where you can choose Moodle or other educational applications and deploy them on the cloud with 2 clicks without having to configure the servers or the databases or even the applications. So as I said, I'm not going to dive into all the services Microsoft Cloud has. I'm going to be talking about a couple of them. Not a couple of them, 4 of them actually. I'm going to be talking about Azure VMs. I will talk about Azure Web Apps. I will talk about Azure Storage and Active Directory Premium. So I'm going to start by discussing Azure Infrastructure as a Service, or in simpler words, Azure VMs. So Azure VMs are just like the VMs we are deploying, the virtual machines we are deploying in our premises. They also have CPU, memory, storage, but instead of deploying them in our premises, we can deploy them to the cloud. And why that's important is because we can deploy as much of them as we want, in the capacity we want, and we can decommission them when we don't need them. So for educational institutions where you have times where you have spikes in requirements and other times where you don't have that much requirements, you can deploy virtual machines just in time and pay for what you use. And there's actually lots of tiers of virtual machines in Azure that can cover, if not all, most of the needs any institution has to requires. For example, there are entry-level machines with small CPUs and less, very few gigabytes of memory, and large memory VMs. You can also find storage-optimized VMs. VMs that massive that can support up to 6 terabytes of SSD disks. Or you can now deploy GPU-enabled VMs, which for educational institutions it's very important because you deploy labs. So imagine being able to deploy a student lab or a multimedia student lab that they need graphic cards. You can deploy it on the cloud and give those students GPU-enabled desktops and decommission them when you don't need them. And the other way to do it now is by purchasing PCs. But on the cloud, you can do it just in time and decommission them when they're not needed. Oliver will show a bit more about how you can use that on the cloud in the next presentation. So the educational use cases for VMs on the cloud is business applications. You can deploy Moodle, student management systems, CRM systems on the cloud. You can use it for research. Maybe if you have a large research requirement where you have to analyze data for a particular project, you can deploy those virtual machines on the cloud and decommission them when the project is done. You can use it for online testing. When you need to provide testing to students, you can deploy the machines on the cloud, provide the testing, and decommission them afterwards. Or you can just use it for your own development and testing purposes, maybe develop or test in-house applications. Actually, it's like I said earlier, it's computing on top. You choose when you deploy them with the virtual machines, and you choose when you decommission them. Of course, the value proposition here is that you get SLA, service level agreement. Microsoft guarantees that those machines will be up and running 99.95% of the time. And you can auto-scale them. That is, you can scale out, provision more copies of that machine automatically if you need higher throughput. And it's the fast provisioning. The most important thing is the fast provisioning. You can have a time to market, as we'd call it, in minutes or hours instead of weeks and months, as was before.
Maybe just to add something, right? So you're thinking, yes, virtual machine, it's somewhere, I can provision it. The beauty of Azure is also the full VPN capability, so you can basically connect your environment with Azure environment. So basically all the virtual machines that are running somewhere, most probably in European data centers, because they will be fully compliant with all the regulations from the European laws, right? You will be able to see in your virtual machine manager or whatever you are using to manage the virtual machines, like as they are in your on-premises environment. That's the beauty, right? And you can switch the workloads back and forth without any issues, right? So it's on your demand.
So the next functionality I'm quite fond of in Azure is web apps. It's actually websites running on Azure. And the first question is, isn't it the same as if I deploy a website on a virtual machine, just installing IIS or Apache and installing my website on that? The main difference is that web apps are running as a service. What does that mean? It means that you manage only the website. You don't have to manage the server or the infrastructure or even the patching below the website. Microsoft does that for you. So what it actually does, it gives you a platform on the cloud where you upload your application, your website, your code, and you deploy your website. And that is completely managed service. You don't have to worry only about your website. You can develop apps using .NET, using Node.js, PHP, Python, and Java. And actually, there's also a free tier in web apps, which you can use for classrooms or for labs, where you can give your students web apps on the cloud, and they can deploy their applications. One very important functionality of web apps is the autoscale. What does autoscale mean? It means that you can grow or shrink depending on the requirements. For educational institutions, that's particularly useful because imagine having, when you have registrations or when you publish results, reports, that's when the requirements spike. When you have a web app, as requirements grow, the web app produces more instances to cover for the extended growth. And it keeps doing that to cover all the users. And once the traffic goes back to normal, it shrinks down. And that's completely automatic. Of course, you have to define some rules. But still, it's an automatic process. Doing that in an on-premise infrastructure or in an infrastructure as a service will take a lot of effort. Platform as a service manages that for you. The next important functionality is staging. What does that mean? It means that you get deployment slots. You can have a production slot. That's the public website where everyone accesses that. And you also have a staging slot. where you do your development. When you feel that your staging website is ready and you want to replace them, with a click of a button, you just replace the slots. So your development website becomes your production, and your production goes to staging. You can have up to 5 development slots. So previously, in order to do a migration or to do an upgrade to your websites, to your educational websites or to the reports website, you do have to define a maintenance slot and also do an actual migration. But now, it's with a couple of clicks. Use cases for educational institutions. Yeah, you can host your school website or web apps or partner apps. It's also cross-platform compliant. You can deploy it, maybe if you have a Linux application, you can deploy it on web apps, or you have a Windows website, you can deploy it on web apps. Opportunities and value proposition for web apps is the uptime. They're highly available, they are under SLA, and they're also auto-scalable. They're compliant with all development platforms like PHP, MySQL, Python. You can deploy CMS solutions like WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, or custom applications. And it reduces bandwidth because you don't host them on your premises, you host them on the cloud. So it's different from hosting an application on your infrastructure and consuming your bandwidth. The next important functionality that you can use on Microsoft Azure, Oliver talked about it a bit before, is Azure AD Premium, which is, what we say in Microsoft is that we live, I think you may have heard of it, we live in a cloud-first, mobile-first world. What does that mean, actually? It's that our users now use many devices to access resources that are connected to our organization. For example, users they use their mobile or their laptops in order to access their email or to access cloud applications like Dynamics or Sugar CRM or Dropbox or Facebook or Twitter or OneDrive and all of those cloud applications. And truth be said, all organizations nowadays use cloud applications. So you have a serious problem in this new world, the user identity. The user identity is kept on premise. It's in your Active Directory. And you need that identity to be able to navigate on the cloud. Now, the way to do that is by using Azure AD Premium. You can replicate your users' identities in Azure AD Premium. And from that place, you can provide a unified, single point of truth for identities for all of your users. What does that mean? It means that a user can log on to their Office 365 account using their corporate credentials. Your administrator has to manage one set of credentials, and the user needs to remember one set of credentials. That's the most important. And not only that, you can integrate cloud applications. Many organizations use Facebook or Twitter or other social media with organizational accounts, either for advertising, for marketing, and for different purposes. That's the truth. So what we're doing today is that we are giving each person in the marketing department, for instance, we are giving them the corporate credentials. So imagine having to give those credentials to 7 people. And then what happens if someone shares those credentials? What if a student gets them? What if someone changes the password deliberately? What if someone leaves the company? You can't manage credentials for 7 users. And that's where Azure AD Premium comes in hand. You integrate Azure AD Premium with more than 3,000 applications on the cloud. Facebook, Twitter, you name it. What you can do then is that users can use their corporate credentials to log on to the Facebook company account. When the user leaves the company, you remove the user from Active Directory or you disable access, and that's about it. You don't affect any other users. And you can also automate that. You can create a rule that says users that are members of the marketing department can access my Facebook account, and they will be able to do it. And when they leave the marketing department, they automatically being removed. They get revoked of the access. Further on, you can use multi-factor authentication. You can require your users to use multiple means of authenticating in your cloud applications, either that mobile phone or a mobile application or a phone call. There's the self-service password reset, which is a very big burden on the IT department. Users that lose their passwords or forget their password need to call the IT department to reset them. Azure AD Premium lets you reset it by yourself. And there's more other educational use cases. For example, faculty, staff, and students can easily access the applications they need using one set of credentials. There's the self-service password reset. You can manage requests. Your users can request access to several applications. So they won't be calling the IT department requesting access to Excel or to PowerPoint or to Office 365 or to Outlook or to Facebook or anywhere else. They can do it from their portal. And also one important thing is that they can edit their profile from Azure AD Premium. They can log on to the portal and edit their details. Next, I'd like to speak about Azure Storage. It's a bit more technical as a technology, but it's quite interesting because the main problems with storage on-premise is scalability. How much storage do I need? And when do I need to expand my storage? Do I need to buy the storage from beforehand? How many storage appliances do I need? And how many appliances do I have scattered around in my organizations? I have a NAS appliance in one place, a storage on the other, some files on a personal computer. And the next is risk management, which is very important for educational institutions. Is my storage encrypted? Is it replicated? What happens if someone deletes a file? What happens if I lose my storage? Who has access to my storage? And of course, costs. How much does it cost to expand my storage? How much does it cost to encrypt my storage? Do I need another appliance in another institution to replicate that storage? All of those factors make a business not being able to move forward flexibly. So, Azure, how can we solve that problem? First of all, with limitless scalability. Practically, there's an infinite storage in Azure. You can store in the cloud as much storage as you want, and you pay for only the storage you use. It's a trusted cloud. You can choose to encrypt your storage on the cloud, and you are the master of your keys. You have the encryption keys. No one can tamper with your data. And that's cloud economics. There are some rules in cloud economics that say that the most important is that you scale whenever you want, and you pay for what you use. In contrast with an on-premise infrastructure where you have to buy everything from the start and you pay for them irrespectively if you use them or not. And that's how you can be more flexible as a business, as an organization using Azure Storage. And there's actually many capabilities. You can use Azure Storage for in lots of ways, like using it for backup. You can back up both your cloud virtual machines or your on-premise data. You can point your on-premise backup appliances to the cloud. Many organizations now use tape libraries. They still use tape libraries. And they use that for offsite backups. You can redirect your offsite backups to the cloud using Azure Storage. Of course, you can use it for disaster recovery, replicate your workloads on the cloud, and fail over to Azure in case of a disaster. And more simply for migration, just to migrate data on the cloud. When it comes to educational institutions, there are more specific educational use cases, like you can store recorded lectures. You don't have to store those lectures on-premise and consuming storage on-premise. You can store them on the cloud. You can also store archives like student grades, or use it for research when you need immense amounts of storage for research purposes or for a project. Maybe you have a project where you need lots of storage. In any other case, you would have to buy that storage, and when the project finishes, don't know what to do with the storage. But now you can do it on the cloud. And of course, you can use it for projects. If you have labs or classes that are graphics classes with art or computer science projects that tend to be massive. After the labs finish, after the classes finish, those data are cold data. They are stale, but they still keep storage space on your on-premise storage. You can put them on the cloud. And as I showed earlier, backup and recovery. You can use storage for recovery and backup. The last functionality I will talk about is Azure Backup, how you can use Azure to back up your data. So it's quite easy. You just sign up for Azure, you install an agent, you register and configure that agent, you back up your encrypted data. In case of a disaster or data loss, you recover that data to the same server or to another server. It's that simple. As I said before, only you have your key. Your data is encrypted on premise, and it navigates the network encrypted, and it gets stored on the cloud encrypted. If you lose your key, you lose access to your data. Microsoft cannot bring them back. Microsoft cannot access that data. It's yours and only yours to handle. You can use Azure Backup to back up server workloads like SQL servers, Windows, Linux, hypervisors like Hyper-V or VMware, Windows Server, clients, and also you can use the backup, Azure Backup, to back up folders and files. From my side, I'm finished, and I'm going to leave you to Oliver to discuss more about specific educational workloads. Thank you.
Okay. So I will use your computer, and I will navigate basically a little bit back.
I don't have internet.
Okay, I don't need internet. I will just navigate to one particular slide which I saw, which is this one. So which of the scenarios which I'm seeing appearing in education, like recently in the past few months? Yes, virtual machines is one of the scenarios where it's, really good to think when you are refreshing your hardware. I know many of you are still running, for instance, Windows Server 2003. Instead of upgrading that part, makes sense to think about whether you can move that workload to the cloud. Another one, which I saw just recently appearing, is hosting a firewall directly on the cloud. So there is a Barracuda firewall, which is really advanced. And as I said, once you establish a VPN trust between your environment and the cloud, you can pass through the firewall through Barracuda firewall, which is already installed. Another one, which I saw very, very popular, especially in education, is the buzzword Citrix, right? You heard about that. So we announced a partnership with Citrix about 2-3 months ago, and now it's possible to launch full Citrix managed virtual machine environment on Azure. What does that mean? Instead of you setting up everything to supply your labs, having thin clients, of course you will need thin clients, but setting up the entire infrastructure usually takes huge amount of resources. And usually these resources are used only during the season of learning, so during the study season, during the semesters. Then you have all the holidays, and you have nice weather, so the holidays are long. Offload that part. Makes sense. And usually another element which most of the people don't think about is night period, right? So you still need to size the capacity of your data center to run the virtual labs, which are run usually from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. But you need to size it for the peak season, right? And after 4, you know, your whole infrastructure is idling and consuming electricity, air conditioning, which is a pretty big problem, and everything that is connected to it. So think about this scenario. I'm working actually in Estonia on a very interesting project where they're basically supplying specialized labs for particular classes. So, you know, during the school semester, you have the need for one particular application for maybe 2 hours. And instead of, you know, sizing everything in your environment, you basically just create a virtual machine which is then sized through Azure on Citrix on Azure. But maybe moving back to like some of the crazy scenarios which are appearing, I think crazy meaning really advanced. I saw, for instance, university in Russia. We are actually developing a proof of concept. They have slightly different problems like you're having in Cyprus. They're having huge or very long winter period. What does that mean? That they need to invest a lot into the heating. You need to invest a lot into the cooling, right? Similar problem. So they're basically putting up sensors in every single classroom, tracking the temperature in the classroom, and tracking the quality of the air in the classroom. Why this is important? Because if the quality of the air in the classroom significantly drops, people will fall asleep, right? If the temperature rises, people will start to feel dizzy, right? So using that sensors, they are optimizing the ventilation system in order to blow the right amount of air, to have like always clean, fresh air in the room, and to keep the right temperature in the classroom. The second important thing is they also have holidays, right? They also have nights. And during the nights, usually people in the classrooms forgot to turn down the heating. So they were heavily heating the entire environment, right? Instead of that, now they have the full automation on the heating system. Using the IoT hub, they are basically tracking the performance of the entire system, and they are saving approximately 30% of the heating cost, and their winter is like 9 months. So you can imagine the savings which they are producing. And they have very nice executive dashboard seeing, you know, where the heating, what is the quality of the air, and so on, using the Power BI. So it's pretty advanced stuff. You can deploy it, you know, all the components are there. And if you think about saving the costs of electricity and the cost of operations of the facility, this is the way, this is the route to go. Another one which I found pretty interesting as well is research. So a lot of you are having scientists in your environment which are performing high performance calculations. Usually these are very much tied to the projects, either the EU project or some local research projects. And usually getting a capacity to run the high performance calculations in your data center requires some time. Once again, that capacity is limited. So you need to get a time slot in that data center. Instead of that, you can basically run it on Azure. We have a support for MATLAB, Python, R, and so on. So you can, instead of sizing that and waiting for a slot for your research project, you can scale it up to 10,000 virtual machines. You will get the results very fast, and you will pay only for that particular 1 hour of time which you are consuming on Azure. It's a very much relevant scenario. And one of the examples is actually coming from University of Finland. They are doing medical research. They're examining how the breast cancer cells are reproducing, so they're finding a cure for that. They're using Azure. They're running more than 10,000 instances to get the results much faster, which improves the go-to-market and the research results. So they basically advanced in, you know, they're using since 2012. they estimated that they shortened the amount of period for, in that particular, like 5 years, for 15 years, because they can do much more using the research on Azure. And also the MATLAB, as it is having capacity problem. So the servers which are running MATLAB server are having maximum capacity of 250 nodes, right? So this is your maximum capacity. Whatever you build, the capacity is 250, and you stop there. Here you can run 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, whatever you want. So this can be a very, very significant workload to think about. What else is appearing? Not maybe heavily connected to the Azure itself, even though it's one of the Azure services, is Operations Management Suite. So once you start growing your environment with virtual machines on Windows Server, Linux, the capacity is 20, 30, 40, 50 virtual machines. Usually you have very limited view what is happening with those virtual machines, right? If certain virtual machine goes down, usually the first interaction is that somebody will call you on the phone and saying, you know, something is wrong, please fix it. With OMS, you can basically connect virtual machines into the cloud service, similar that you're connecting Intune with clients. You're connecting servers with cloud, and you get the full health status, protection, security measures, advices, and so on, using the OMS stack. So if something goes wrong, you will automatically, as an administrator, receive the notification, something went wrong, you need to fix it. And it works in both models. Even if you have the data center on premises, it can monitor that infrastructure, as well the virtual machines in the cloud, which is, I think, very, very beneficial. One of the workloads which I found very popular also in education, you have Active Directory. Most of you do, right? But what if something happens and your Active Directory goes offline? Users cannot authenticate towards Office 365 if you have federation. Users cannot log into any services that you are providing. So it makes sense to have a high availability using Azure Virtual Machine. You set up one virtual machine, you run the Active Directory in high availability mode, and if something goes wrong, you have the central spot which is always there ready for you to balance the outage, right? And there are many, many other more, which I think we can speak about Azure like 1 week without even touching or doing any demo. Another one which I can actually show you, let me switch to this one. And I think Stavrinos already mentioned it, is Moodle on Azure. So what I did, this is the Azure Management Console. It's pretty nice. So everything is in one place. Let me go to the dashboard. So here is like the general overview, whether all the services are running, where are the data center locations, whether all the data center locations are up and running, and so on. What I can do is I need Moodle. It's a pretty common tool that is used in education. I just need to do this. I need Moodle 1. I will just select one. So I already have a prepared one, which is, I think, very good. So I have the Moodle. I have the Moodle on different platforms. I select this one from the gallery. I will create it. I will name it Moodle 1. I will choose slower hard drives. Maybe I need it just for one particular project or something like that. I will choose the password option, so I will put the name, the username Oliver. I will put some sort of a password to it, so I will be able to access it. Then I have my subscription. So how it works, you can basically buy a subscription and you get credited for the usage which you are consuming. Then I can change the location. As you can see, the list is pretty big. I will deploy it in West Europe. I think that is in Dublin. I will check, yes. I need to create a resource group, Moodle 1. So there are some steps which we need to take, but it's not something that is really difficult to do. So I'm choosing, let's say, like a really standard core basic virtual machine in the background. It will cost me approximately 37 euro per month. So this is the one core, 1.75 gigabytes of RAM, 2 data disks, load balancing, and so on. Okay, I will select this one. I will just use the default settings here, and I will be able to buy it. So what it does in the background, it informs me that the cost will be 0.05 euro per hour. So like I said before, auto-scaling, auto-descaling, if you need it only from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, and you know that nobody will access it afterwards, you can basically shut down the virtual machine. And you can create a task that will do that for you. During weekends, during holidays, you just shut it down. And in that time, you're not paying anything for it. So the cost goes even lower than 37 euro. And since I did this process, usually takes about 2-3 minutes, and the Moodle is basically then provisioned. I did that when Stavrinos was actually presenting. And what I did, what I have, I received the IP where I can basically log in, and my Moodle is up and running. Now I can connect and I can start configuring it. One of the first things which I recommend to do is to connect it using Office 365, because then you will have a single sign-on experience. And Moodle, Office 365. On Moodle community, you already have plugins for Moodle, which you can basically pull into your Moodle environment, which you set up on Azure. And this will enable the single sign-on, as well the connectivity to other services like Calendar, like OneDrive for Business, and so on. And I can basically get the full environment set up in, let's say, less than an hour. And I can start using the learning management system. This is just one of the scenarios which appears, right? One of the things which, before we conclude, where I would like to spend additional 1 or 2 minutes is GDPR. How many of you heard about the GDPR? Yes. So you're a little bit aware what is coming. So General Data Protection Regulation will imply every single company and every single organization in Europe to comply with some certain privacy and security rules. We already announced that all the Microsoft Cloud services will be fully compliant with GDPR. So this is like a very good sign that, if you will think about migrating certain workloads to the cloud, you will already have the right level of assurance that the services are compliant. However, it imposes also another big topic, which is how you handle the identities in your environment and how you audit who is doing what type of a process. So definitely think and learn more. May 2018 is very close. It's closer than you think. We will be hosting a lot of different workshops on this topic, so you will be able to see which workloads are currently a threat for you, how you're storing the PII data and stuff like that. There will be a lot of consultancy on this area in the coming months, a lot of workshops as well. But just, I want to implant that word into your head because it will be very, very important. Why important? Because the fees for not complying with GDPR are huge. It's either the 4% turnover of the organization or up to 20 million euro for organization. So huge. So even the companies that are basically hosted somewhere in US, they're doing the business in Europe, they will need to fully comply with GDPR rules. Just to give you a little bit of a sense, I will send this deck also to Vanessa, so you will get it forward.
Just something for those of you who have registered, that you will get the presentations. Those of you who haven't, but just make sure that you manually register and write down your email so we can send the presentation.
Yes. So it's a pretty huge deck on GDPR, how this will impact the organizations in Europe. Read it carefully, really. It's one of the hot topics and it's a very important topic to think about. Most probably in your organization you will need to get somebody assigned to be a security/GDPR officer to really review how you're doing the processes in your organization now and to really rethink how you can basically comply. Because, you know, when things start, it will be pretty painful. So that's it from my side. I think we covered OneNote, which was planned for the end. Vanessa, do you have something to add on OneNote?
Yes, I have just something quickly. Learning tools, you showed it, but I want to show something additional. Do we have a VGA?
Yes. But it won't connect to the internet automatically.
Should I just remove it? So Oliver has mentioned class notebook before, and he briefly also mentioned learning tools. This is what I want to emphasize a bit more because this is a great tool. It's actually being voted as the top application for children with dyslexia, but it's also a great tool for every single learner as it improves reading skills and comprehension. So I have, unfortunately, I don't have internet connection. For those of you who also have iPhones or iPad, there is this great tool, Office Lens. Does any one of you know Office Lens? Okay, so it works great with learning tools because what you can do is you can actually take a picture, import it directly onto the OneNote. I try to do it now, but because of internet connection, so I'll show you something. Another example that I did before. This is the badge from the event we had in Athens a couple of weeks ago. So I used Office Lens, I took a picture of the badge. The letters were really tiny, and I sent it directly from my phone, from Office Lens, onto the OneNote. So I get this picture on OneNote. Once you download learning tools, you will see on top that you have these learning tools up here. So you can use Immersive Reader have sound?
Yeah, just.
Basically, it can read the text. And you have some further tools. For example, when it comes to, you can adjust the voice speed. Does it support Greek? No.
English.
Some other languages, yes. French, German is there, but not Greek yet. Italian, I think yes. Arabic,
Could be. Could be.
So you can adjust the fonts and stuff like this, or you can, if you are helping children to improve comprehension, you can choose nouns, verbs, so it automatically highlights this for you, and it helps children understand the context of a text. So basically, they can even take a picture of a page of their book and send it directly into the OneNote to use these tools. So this is, I think, the only thing that you haven't showed from.
Yes, I haven't. I haven't.
Yes.
So you can back.
Yeah. Any questions? Yes?
I've got a question, but is it that in Azure?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's okay. At the moment, I'm teaching my students how to create websites,
Mm-hmm.
and we're using WordPress. And I've got my own dedicated server where I've got each domain for my student and myself. And I've
Okay.
only for one dedicated server. But if I want to do it through Azure, do I have to, like you did before, add a new WordPress for each student, so each student has his own website?
So definitely one of the things which I would investigate is DreamSpark. Inside DreamSpark, imagine you have per student certain quota of Azure which they can use for this kind of a learning. And WordPress is actually available as a platform as a service product, meaning that this one was provisioned through virtual machine. WordPress can be provisioned as an application. And you can consume out of that quota for learning purposes WordPress.
Different quotas to each student, right?
Yes, yes.
And you can, technically, you can also deploy a virtual machine on the cloud, deploy WordPress and MySQL on the same virtual machine.
Yep.
And use either multi-sites within WordPress to host for each student their website, or host actually multiple sites. Now in Azure, you can add multiple IPs on each virtual machine. So you can map different domains or subdomains to each IP and have each student have their own site and MySQL database.
Thank you.
That's a lot of
Yep.
ways you can do it.
So once you set up the class notebook,
Mhm.
it's the end of the year, there's a new class coming in September. Do
Mhm.
I mean, the notebook is set up, so do I just remove the students? Can I create groups
Mhm.
within the same notebook? Do I remove the students and then add new students for the new incoming class because the notebook has been set up?
So the recommendation is usually to set up a new class notebook, invite the new students in, but to copy paste all the content. So you can copy paste it, or there is like yeah, just.
I don't have internet, so I don't know.
No, I have it. Just give me this one.
And this one, you need it? Or not?
No, I don't think so. Mhm. So it should appear. Yeah. So you have this option to distribute content library across different notebooks. So once you have the content in content library ready, which is basically a stable part which you want to move from a class to a class, you can basically using this tool just synchronize across multiple notebooks. Anything else? Yes.
secure than the last and challenge my students to break into them, is that a breach of the terms of service?
Yeah.
Yep.
Never mind then.
If you are, actually, if there's, I don't think your students will have a massive capacity of attacking Azure.
No, I mean, it's top 20 passwords to start off with, and
That's-
it might move up to more sophisticated
It's actually
attacks.
clear, if you, that what the terms of service say that is that you're not allowed to prepare a DDoS attack in Azure.
Okay, yeah.
But if you are going to do something for penetration testing or for security testing, you have to let Azure know beforehand.
Yeah.
Because if they detect it, if they detect on the perimeter, they're gonna close down all your machines and the access.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
So if you're gonna do that, it's an animal.
Yeah, maybe call you first. Alright, thank you.
It's good that he put that question there, because I would have been in trouble. Because of him. Can I add one question? So
Sure.
I'd like to make a comment. Now, my first comment is regarding the OneNote.
Mhm.
The learning tools is a great product, especially the Dictate one.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to let everyone know that if you are not using Windows 10, there are some factors that you cannot work. So,
Yeah.
so keep in mind that in order to have the full functionality of those latest products, you should also have Windows 10 and the latest updates.
Yeah.
And my second question is related with Azure. Because in Azure there are a lot of things, a lot of options. What option do you recommend in order to create a very simple database if you have basic database keys? Because before we were able to create access databases through SharePoint,
Mhm.
but as from the previous months, that product is no longer
Mhm.
offered. So, what is the recommended option if you want to make a simple database in Azure?
SQS.
For learning purposes, or for development purposes, for production,
For record keeping.
for record keeping.
Yes.
You mentioned access. The good thing with access is that in the same platform you can deploy both the forms part and the database part.
Mhm.
Which when in other options you have to deploy the database part and create the forms part using a platform like PHP or HTML or anything else. Microsoft SQL Server, you can use SQL Express, which allows you
Yeah.
until 10 gigabytes of data for free. And it's more or less, it provides loads of functionality from the SQL Server platform. Or you can use an open source, like MySQL or Postgres.
Okay, so what do you recommend exactly? I mean, what do you recommend for a simple
I would recommend SQL Express.
SQL Express.
Thanks.
Yes?
For the classroom OneNote, you said that we have to create the class and then enter the students into each
Mhm.
class.
The
and share
class
it.
notebook, because there is another product called Classroom.
Okay. What my question is there a way we can get the information from the school's master information system so that we don't need to enter each student manually
Yes.
with the data system?
School Data Sync is the tool. So basically, out of your school management system, you export everything to CSV, and then there is a background task which is provisioning that directly to Office 365. So you basically, once you have the groups defined, you basically said, I want this 3A group of student using that OneNote, and then it disseminates and creates spaces for every student. But School Data Sync is the tool to do that. Yes?
And because I missed the first part
Mhm.
about OneNote learning tools,
Okay.
I thought it was supposed to be in the last part of the seminar.
Yes, we included it. We included one part
I
on
missed
the.
that. Is there a way to get as much information or maybe some source of learning, training, and
Yes.
And also, I think, Chris, the session today is recorded, right? So it's going to be available through the university website? Okay. Yes. So the whole session today has been recorded,
Or
but
maybe some links for
Yes.
learning and applying in the classroom.
Yes, so one of the source of good training materials is Microsoft Innovative Education site, where basically there are trainings for how to use Office 365, how to use Microsoft Classroom, Class Notebook, Teams, learning tools, and so on. And there is like, learning tools is a plugin for OneNote, so it needs to be installed.
And actually for OneNote, because it's a tool that is heavily used by teachers and students, we have a specific website that holds all the information on OneNote and several add-ins just for teachers and education.
Yeah.
Where can we find
Okay, did you register and do
Yes,
you?
I did.
Okay, so I will include those links because I had a couple of slides which I didn't show. So I will include those links into my presentation, as well as the link to the community for teachers that Oliver has mentioned.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Any
And-
other?
And Chris Alexander from the University of Nicosia, who is, thank you for the hospitality as well for today.
Yes.
We would like to thank University of Nicosia, first of all, because it was their initiative to run this training, and second, for having us here and for hosting this, and for recording it, so we will be able to have to send the full session to you for those who were not able to be here as well.
Hopefully we'll have more sessions in the future.
Yeah, looking forward.
Excellent.
Thank you. Always. I need to run.
Yes,
Demos
I
is
know.
waiting for me already.